Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real world self publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, today's episode is going to be a full on rant about self published book covers. One of the things that drives me crazy on social media is when self-published authors post a giant picture of their proposed book cover art, and then they ask their friends and followers, what you think? All right, being an editor, that is a question that's like catnip for me. I usually want to give constructive feedback on the cover. And what I've noticed sometimes when I do that is that the author isn't terribly appreciative of that. Now, I'm not getting my feelings hurt or anything with that. I don't care if they do or don't take my feedback. I'm just so in that mode of giving constructive feedback. But I think the reason they don't appreciate it is because their goal in posting it was something completely different than wanting feedback. Most of them, what I have found, really are just looking for compliments or attaboy, attagirl, wow, great, fantastic, congratulations, blah, blah. So then when they get genuine feedback, and I will give them both positive and negative. So I'm not just picking things apart for the sake of picking things apart. I actually am providing constructive feedback. And so I think sometimes they're looking for compliments, and a lot of times they won't respond to my feedback, or they'll get very defensive. So then I know for sure they weren't looking for feedback. Now, another thing that I think is happening is that when they post their cover, it's after they've spent a ton of money getting a designer to create this work of art for their book. And so they're looking for some reassurance that they spent their money wisely. And if all their friends and followers can say, oh, it looks fantastic, they breathe a sigh of relief. Oh, yeah, I made the right decision. Now you have to ask, well, why did they spend so much money anyway? Granted, and this isn't a knock on graphic designers. A lot of them do really beautiful work. But for a lot of self-published books, it's completely and utterly unnecessary. Simply because the book cover, the old advice of, the book cover is what sells, that's still, yes, in a way true. You don't want a piece of junk book cover. I get that. I totally understand that. But book covers really aren't as crucial as they were back in the days when most books were sold in bookstores. Because when books were sold in bookstores, they had to have shelf appeal. And these days, with more and more books being sold online, the book cover has to look good as a teeny tiny little graphic that's about maybe 1 to 2 inches by 1 inch or so. So it's got to be a little teeny tiny graphic and web resolution. So when these authors spend a lot of money on a very big detailed book cover, it's not going to have the same effect when you look at it online. So, okay, going back to bookstores. Even if these days, even if you get your self-published book in a bookstore, chances are it's not going to be on the big display tables or the aisle end caps. Better chance that it's going to be on a shelf with all kinds of other books within your genre. So then only the spine of the book is visible. So, I mean, how standout can you be with your book spine? So that's why it's just not as critical as it was years ago. Now, the other thing that I think a lot of self-published authors do is when they post their book cover, they consider it kind of like a pre-launch promotion. But then they don't usually have a pre-order offer available. It's just, hey, look at my great cover. But then they don't offer a link of where to buy it. And you have to remember a couple of things. First of all, if you don't provide a way for people to act, if you don't have a call to action, there's really no value in that. So if you're going to post this cover early, just post it and then put a link to a pre-order. Get it done. And the other thing is that even if you do this just as kind of a PR kind of move, people forget. They forget a lot. They're so overloaded with information, they're not going to remember your book at all. And then we have to remember that they're just so overloaded. They're never going to remember your book unless you have a call to action with it. So, going further, what should you do if you really do want feedback on your book cover? First of all, you have to evaluate if you are really seeking feedback. If you're not planning to make any changes to your book cover art, either because it's expensive to do it with your designer or it's a lot of work for you, if you're not planning to make any changes or adjustments to your book cover art, don't ask for feedback because you don't want feedback. Chances are in that case, you just want compliments or attention. So genuinely evaluate if you really do want feedback. And if you do want feedback, ask for it privately or professionally. And you have to wonder, okay, let's say you're posting it on social media. Okay, fine. Are your friends and followers the best people to evaluate your book cover? Chances are they are not. And especially if you get your close friends and family involved, not only may they be unqualified, they might be terribly judgmental. And then you'll be all crushed and depressed because they don't like your book cover. So ask for it privately from selected friends or followers who have a lot of experience or knowledge of your genre or you or your work. Those are the people who can really provide the best feedback. And if you don't have any of those in your tribe, you can also ask any of your editors or beta readers to give you some feedback on your book cover art, whether it is appropriate for the type of book that you have written. So ask privately or professionally. And you have to remember that Also, people who say, even if it's your friends or followers, who could be your potential reader buyers, if they say they love your book cover, that doesn't mean they'll actually buy either. It's the whole focus group problem. A lot of people say they like this, they like that, but they never actually take action in reality. But here's the bigger issue. Remember that people buy your book because it's your book. They're not going to go back and forth and say, okay, I'll see, my friend author here, their book cover, and then a competing author on the other side, they're going to say, I'm not sure about the cover here. I think I'll take the competitor's book because I like it better than this author. No, don't do that. Again, it's that whole bookstore problem where books in the olden days had to have shelf appeal, just like packaging in the grocery store. So make your followers want your book and want what's in between the book covers. So, okay, rant done. But I hope you found it helpful anyway. And if you did, please rate and review The Heidi Thorne Show on iTunes. And while you're on iTunes, don't forget to subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show so you don't miss one of my rants in the future. And my episodes are also on Stitcher and Podbean. And if you want to listen to it on your Alexa, you just need to go to the AnyPod skill and you can find The Heidi Thorne Show there. And also, the video podcast version is available on YouTube. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne channel and you'll get updates on the next episodes whenever they come out. And so want to follow the show so that you don't miss all of this information. If you do want to see my self-published books, they are on Amazon and not in bookstores. You can order them through bookstores usually, but they're all on Amazon. I do most of my book sales. In fact, all of my book sales this past year were on Amazon. So you just have to go to my Heidi Thorne author page on Amazon, and you'll find all my books there. If you like the audio book versions better, I am on Audible, Amazon, the audiobooks, and also iTunes audiobooks. So check them out there. Don't forget to share the books or this show with your friends on social media. And if you want to connect with me, my website is HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode. In the meantime, have a great day.